Welcome back to the Nothing But Sports podcast. College football is almost here. We are almost at week 0. We are not too far away from it. And we're going to do our Big 12, first half of the Big 12 preview today. Hope you checked out the ACC. We're going to try to start cranking out this content to all of it be out by week 1. Because we're probably not going to have all of it out by week 0. So, and then check out the Instagram. We have our full every game predictions of who's winning and losing. And check out the socials. Please like and subscribe. We really appreciate you tuning in. And an AP poll came out today for the preseason. And a lot of people have problems with it. I have a lot of problems with it. But Briggs, I'll let you lead off on just overall thoughts of the AP poll that came out today.
You look at the top and get like a top 10-ish teams. There's not much surprises in there. Pretty chalky compared to the coaches poll that came out last week, I believe. So really no surprises there. There's a couple teams that are shuffled up and down over each other. I think the biggest surprises are kind of after that 10. Alabama being number 13. I think this is the first time they've been outside of the top 10 in the first AP poll of the season since early years of the Saban era. It has been a long, long time. Michigan at 16. That may be a little high. We'll get to our Big Ten predictions come, I guess, not next week, but the week. So it'll be between week 0 and week 1 will be Big Ten. We got the Big 12 this week. SEC should be next week leading into week 0. What on earth is Missouri doing at 25?
And then the next team that would have been in is Clemson, which is crazy to me.
What is Tennessee doing at 20? I don't think either one of those teams belong. Not notable seasons last year. And I think Josh Pate kind of put this the best. And I did just say not many notable seasons last year. What happened last season shouldn't necessarily correlate to the first. I guess the record last year shouldn't necessarily correlate to what is exactly like the ranking this year. Like it shouldn't carry over line to line. But when you look at like what Tennessee did in the offseason, and I'm kind of just speaking off the dome here, I don't think it was all that notable. I don't really have a ton of like major trust in Heupel to kind of, I guess, get the big games done this year. I don't know who's on their schedule, but like you looked at, because they played Georgia this year, correct? Or did they? Tennessee.
They played last year. I think they play them again this year.
Of course, I don't have Tennessee's schedule.
That was a really tight game.
I believe that was. I believe that was in Tennessee last year too.
Yeah,
but I don't see the reason to put Tennessee as high as that. And I'm an SEC guy. Went to South Carolina. I don't see like Penn State. I'm going to need to see a lot from them. It's a lot of Iowa State transfers. And again, they went 8-4 last season. I don't know necessarily how you plug that into Penn State's program with Matt Campbell.
They went 6-6. Or are you talking about Iowa State?
I'm talking about Iowa State.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm talking about Iowa State being plugged into with Matt Campbell bringing over a ton. And we'll get to this in a minute. Iowa State has 0 returning starters. So taking everything, all the meat and bones from there, plugging it at Penn State, how does that lead to a 18th ranked season? Like I just don't or 18th ranked national team. Like I just don't understand where a lot of this AP ranking comes in, where some of these voters' heads are at. So again, it's the first season. There's going to be a lot of movement come week 3. I think this is going to look vastly different outside of the top 8-9 teams. So, Joey, I know you've got a lot of thoughts on this. I'll let you get into that.
So, first off, I hate people that criticize polls or criticize predictions or whatever, and they don't have their own prediction. We're going to put out our own preseason poll sometime before week 0 at some point. If not, it's going to be before week 1 because there's not a lot that's going to affect my opinion in week 0 on teams. So, I think you look at the top 7. I think there's just 7 bona fide national championship contenders. I think you would agree. I would have them ranked very differently. I think there's 3 teams with bona fide top 3 rosters and that should be ranked in the top 3. I don't care about the order, but I think Oregon, Notre Dame, and Texas should all be ranked in the top 3. I think those three teams have by far the best. Not by far. I don't want to say that, but they have the least amount of questions when it comes to a roster standpoint. And we can break it down team by team if you really want to, and I can tell you their biggest questions right now. And I haven't even done research in any of those 3 teams. So, then you move down. Texas A&M at 8, interesting to me. Above Alabama, above Oklahoma. I'm not high on Ole Miss this year. I think Ole Miss at 9 is kind of surprising. LSU at 11, that's brand. I would have LSU lower just because you don't know with that roster, personally. You have Brigham Young and SoCal tied at 14. Interesting. Brigham Young had an argument to be in the playoffs last year. SoCal was nowhere near that. I think SoCal brings in a really good roster. The Wolverines, brand again. Penn State, brand. Tennessee, brand. Missouri, I don't know if I want to say brand, but maybe the SEC brand. And then Clemson, the first team out, brand. Like, all those teams are kind of up there for brand. Florida's the next team out, brand. I would have Arizona and TCU over both those teams, personally. And I think we had this conversation a lot last year where we had to actually talk about this, but we're going to do a top 40 like around when the CFP starts dropping their rankings. So I think top 40 wins are really important, especially for the Big 12 and the ACC. Top 40 wins, I think, are important, not just top 25 wins, because I think brand value can get misplaced, and I think a lot of voters get attached to their preseason rankings. Like, if Ohio State goes in and looks horrendous against Ball State in week 1, they're not going to drop. They're not. And maybe they should. I don't remember who Texas plays in week 1. If Texas goes out and looks bad against whatever team they play in week 1, they're not going to drop. Same thing with Oregon looking bad against Boise State. Notre Dame looking bad against Wisconsin. Like, all those teams, like, none of those teams are going to drop because I think some of these voters get so attached. If Ohio State goes and gets blown out by Texas, they're not dropping past 15. Realistically. And vice versa for Texas. I think if LSU loses week 1, they're not going to drop a lot because I think a lot of these voters get so attached to their preseason polls, and you don't know with how much roster overhaul happens in college football these days. You don't know with a lot of these teams. All of these predictions, we're just guessing. Hence why I have Syracuse 7-5 or 8-4, and you have them 2-10. We're both guessing on all these rosters, and one of us is either Syracuse can land right in the middle at like probably 5-7, and we're both kind of right, or I'm right and you're completely off, and so on and so forth, right? So all this is guessing. It's fun. I'm interested. I would have Houston a lot higher. I think Houston's a team that's way too low, personally.
So,
I would have Houston above Utah right now. Houston's at 23. I'd have them above Iowa. I'd have them above Utah, above Tennessee. I'm very high on Houston's roster this year. And I think
Did,
this poll should be based off of roster construction. Absolutely.
so did you see the thing I sent you earlier today? RJ Young's ultimate 138 college football rankings.
I did see that. And I thought that was interesting because that's hard. That's
It's
hard.
atrocious. It's got North Dakota State above Louisville, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Iowa, Illinois, UCLA, Virginia Tech. It's got Hawaii at 38 above Virginia, Pitt, NC State, Duke, Wake Forest. All of those teams I think we predicted to have winning records. I think you put those teams head to head against Hawaii. Hawaii's getting smoked every time as long as it's on a neutral site, not in the Hawaiian Islands. It has Air Force ahead of Navy by 4 spots, which Navy has won the Commander in Chief's trophy, I think, the last 2 seasons, and is looking like dark horse for the G6 spot. Um, like there's a lot of things on here that just make absolutely. And I get ranking all 138 teams is hard, but this is just atrocious across the board.
In G6 rosters, it's so unknown.
Yeah,
It's
and
it's so hard to predict. Like predicting Power 4 teams is hard. I'm struggling, especially in the Big 12, where I think you have a bunch of teams in the middle that can go beat up on each other week by week. Predicting the Big 12 is really hard. So is predicting the ACC. I think the SEC and the Big 10 we have a little bit better idea of. But even then, picking this SEC and Big 10 schedule, I don't know who the hell I'm going to pick for Ohio State and Oregon. I don't know who I'm going to pick when Ohio State goes to Indiana. I don't know who I'm going to pick when Oregon goes to Washington. Because Washington is a dark horse for a playoff spot this year, in my opinion. Hence why they're ranked above Penn State, Tennessee, Southern Methodist, Iowa, Louisville. So unless you have anything else, I think we spent enough time on that because we're crunched on time already.
yeah, I'm good.
All right, that'll lead into our first team in the Big 12, which is the Arizona Wildcats, which I think Brent Brennan is in his 3rd season as Wildcat head coach.
Yes, I believe so. So Arizona, the books got them at 7.5 on the spreads or win total. We both had them going 8-4. Different wins and losses in there. Same overall thing. They're right in the middle of the pack with 8th hardest strength of schedule in the Big 12. So not too hard, not too easy. Finished 9-4 last season, 6-3 in conference. They are returning 60% of their production, so that's pretty big. 49th nationally ranked transfer portal class, 11th in the Big 12, 43rd ranked recruit class, 7th in the Big 12. My big thing for you, and I saw this earlier today, doom scrolling on Instagram. Where does Noah Fafita fill in to the Heisman conversation? And can he improve on his numbers from last season? He threw 64, just over 64% completion, just over 3,200 yards, 29 touchdowns, 6 picks, but he did take 29 sacks. Obviously, those are some pretty good numbers when you factor that into the non-win season. So where does he fit in kind of as a lower tier kind of player coming into the season?
So Fafita is back in his, I want to say, 4th year as starter.
Yeah, I believe this is the last year of eligibility.
Yeah, he's a redshirt senior this year. He's back for his 4th year as the starter, and he was really good last season. He improved the interceptions, which he had struggled with in 2024, and this backfield is going to be really experienced. You have Ismail Mahadi at running back. He's back for his 4th year as a starter. As a starter, I assume. He's had well over 3,200 yards in his career, rushing yards in his career. You also have Kedrick Rosano, who's got 600 yards in his career. And you also have Quincy Craig. So you have a redshirt senior, quarterback, a redshirt senior running back, and 2 senior running backs. So you are loaded with experience in this offensive backfield. And so that shouldn't be a worry for Arizona offensively. Their top 3 skill players are gone. The remaining parts are bad. They got some depth out of the portal. That receiver room, I want to say it's going to be led by Chris Hunter. The remaining parts aren't bad. Not a whole lot of experience. Under Brent Brennan, Arizona is 0-7 when scoring less than 20 points. So the offense has to keep working. And so Brennan is in his 3rd year. He's 13-12 there overall. And Arizona had a really good season last year. Replacing the remaining parts, or the receivers in the portal, is going to be interesting. Hopefully it'll work out. But I think, I was talking to my dad earlier on this, like, good receivers are kind of a dime a dozen. Like, good, not great, but good receivers are very easily replaceable, and they're very, I don't know the word. I don't know how I want to describe it, but they're very, you can find them relatively easily, whether it's taking one up from the G5 or you just have another guy waiting in the wings. Like, receivers, there's always going to be an opportunity for a receiver to break out, unless you're playing for a service academy. But no diss to Navy. But they're 2nd in the Big 12 in takeaways last year, only behind Texas Tech. And they only had 1 less than Tech did last year. They had 31 takeaways. Here is probably the biggest worry, is they lost 6 of the 7 top tacklers from last season. Brought in a whole slew of secondary transfers, led by Tyrese Boss, really good prospect coming out, Lee Millette the third, Dalen Austin, and a bunch of depth players coming in. And Dwight Booty's also going to be a guy in that secondary. So they got some depth. We'll see on the defensive lines. They got some experience coming in with 2 of their 3 defensive linemen are going to be seniors. So they got some experience. But yeah, the trenches are going to be the worst, in my opinion, for Arizona. I think you'll have some receivers step up. They brought in 3 from the transfer portal, so I think they'll be all right there. It's just can the offensive line give Vita more time to throw? And it's the Big 12. Defense has never been a concern of Big 12 teams unless you're Texas Tech, which is why Texas Tech ran roughshod on the league last year. So I got them going 9-3. I know you said I had them going 8-4. I don't know where I inputted it wrong on the doc, to be honest with you. But oh no, I didn't change it on my paper. Disregard it. I do have them going 8-4. I just never changed it. My bad.
Making me look bad over here. All right. So big question for you. Where do you think their ceiling is? And if they come out week 2 and beat BYU in Provo, how does that change the trajectory of their season? How does that give them a little more momentum? And can they finish off 11-1? Highly unlikely to go 12-0, but I mean, they're only playing 3 ranked teams in Utah, Texas Tech, and BYU. Matchup Predictor has them not favored in only 3 games, of which I think Kansas State is favored over them, but they are favored against Utah. And I get Matchup Predictor for ESPN, not the most accurate thing in the world, but it gives you a picture, and especially this early in the season, just painting a picture is what we can do. But how important would a week 2 win at BYU be, especially talking about trying to build a resume for the CFP and trying to reach a Big 12 playoff game?
Well, if they beat Brigham Young, they can beat anyone in the conference, in my opinion. I think Brigham Young's I'm very high on Brigham Young. I think Brigham Young. Spoiler alert: I'm probably gonna have Brigham Young winning the conference. So I'm very high on Brigham Young. If they can beat Brigham Young in Provo, they can beat anyone, and they are among those top teams in the Big 12, along with the Utahs, the Texas Techs, the Brigham Youngs, because those are the bona fide top 3 teams. I have Arizona finishing 7th in the Big 12, just because of the conference record. But if they can beat Brigham Young, they can beat anyone in this conference, because I don't think the gap between Texas Tech and Brigham Young is that far. What say you?
I think it's very possible, but I think it's one of those games where if they're going to win, it's going to have to be close. I think the second it tries to go to a shootout, it's going to lean more towards BYU. I think you're going to have to try and drag them into a slugfest and beat them that way. But I think that Texas Tech game, I think we're still kind of counting on the Red Raiders to still play very well. I think the Big 12 title game is going to be Texas Tech and BYU again. Rematch of last year. See if BYU can get some revenge. But I think it's very possible they go 11-1. I think that's where their ceiling is. I don't think anyone in the Big 12 is going to go undefeated this season. I think everyone's going to slip up at some point. I don't think anyone's roster is good enough to kind of go all the way. I think BYU is going to get. I think Texas Tech and BYU play once in the regular season again, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, they do not. Okay, never mind. Just looking at Texas Tech's schedule off the rip, they might go undefeated. That's not a hard schedule at all.
I do not have them going undefeated, but
you have them losing to Houston.
Huh? Yeah.
I think you have them losing to Houston. I think I saw that in the doc. I don't know.
I do. I have a Big 12 disaster scenario for the CFP. I have the way I predicted this. It is an absolute disaster for the committee. If it shapes up like this, do you want me to go ahead and spill it?
No. We're gonna, for all 5 of you listening at home, tune in. I think this is going to come out Wednesday, and I think the second half is going to come out Friday. So tune in Friday to hear Joey's disaster class scenario.
Yeah.
Tell me after that. I want to hear this.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, do you have anything else for Arizona? Or do you want to move to Arizona State?
I'm ready to move on to Kenny Dillingham and what the Sun Devils got cooking. All righty. So, and when I say the books, it's always FanDuel. Who I've been getting my over/under projection lines for. So just throwing that out there if anyone's actually going to put money on this. But FanDuel has Arizona State at 6.5. Both of us went over. I had them at 7.5, going 5-4 in conference. You had them at 8-4, going 6-3 in conference. Last season they finished 8-5, 6-3 in conference. They are 54% returning production, 22nd nationally ranked transfer portal class, 3rd in the Big 12, and 41st nationally ranked recruiting class, 6th in the Big 12. And then big question for you off the rip. Wow, what a mumble jumble there. Can Kenny Dillingham get similar production from Cutter Boley that he got from Sam Levitt prior to injury? Cutter Boley threw for 65, almost 66% completion percentage last year, 2,100 yards, 15 touchdowns and 12 interceptions with 26 sacks. So those are some questionable numbers, although he was going up against some rather good defenses. Levitt threw for just over 60% completion percentage, 1,600 yards, 232 yards per game, 10 touchdowns, 3 picks, 19 sacks. Injured his foot, I believe, 8 games into the season. May have been 7. He may have gotten injured on the 8th game. I think it was against Baylor. But so back to the question: do you think Kenny's going to be able to draw out the same talent that Sam Levitt had from Cutter Boley?
Don't sleep on Mikey Keene either. He played for that horrendous school up north, but he didn't actually play last year. I mean, Mikey Keene started off at Central Florida, threw for almost 3,000 yards. He was 24-10 TD to interception ratio. They went to Fresno State, threw for 2,800 yards and 18-11 TD to interception ratio. Took a lot of sacks, but he threw for 70% completion percentage in 2024, and then sat at the Wolverines last year. So Mikey Keene could be an interesting option. I don't think they've announced their starting quarterback this year.
It has not been formally announced yet and should be announced prior to week 1, the preparation for week 1. So that we may be getting an answer tail end of next week.
I mean,
So
they might play it out against Morgan State. I don't think that's ideal, but they might.
I think
mean,
you
they
want
go
to
Texas A&M week 2.
which that's a fun game. Maybe they won't blow a 31-point lead or 30-point lead.
I wasn't going to say it. You did. I was just going to save my South Carolina slander for SEC next week. But anyway, talking about the skill for Arizona State, their star power took a huge hit. Their second leading receiver and their tight end. I need to find his name. But Jordan Tyson, really good. Shimon Matire, he was second on the team in catches. So star power really took a hit. But they've got some good they got some good receivers. They got Reed Harris out of the transfer portal from Boston College. He had 600 yards last year. Omarion Miller, who you've heard his name probably at Colorado, he had 800 yards last year. So they got good pieces out of the transfer portal. Kyson Brown doesn't have a lot of playing time, and Marquise Gillis also transferred in. He's from Delaware State. I don't have his numbers pulled up. It's Raleek Brown's gone. I want to say he went to Texas. He was another big one, and of course Sam Levitt left. We'll see with the offensive line. This offensive line is really young, projected to have 3 sophomores start and a junior transfer. This offensive line looks really young. We'll see how they come together. And this goes for every team. Goes for every team this year. When you grab offensive linemen out of the portal, especially when it's more than 2, and they're going to start, it is always so crucial to see how they mesh. It is always going to be so crucial to see how they mesh. The front seven's good for Arizona State is a bit older, has some move, but lack of size might hurt them. They're 2 projected starters. They have 310-pounder at one of their defensive tackles and a 305-pounder. So size is slightly questionable for them. Got some transfers at the corner, but they're thin on experience. Not a lot there. My phone is getting absolutely blown up right now. But corners don't have a lot of experience for Arizona State. That's going to be interesting to see how that secondary comes together with communication, so on and so forth. They got a decent amount of transfers out of there. Owen Long will probably be the leader on defense. He's transferring in. He had over 100. He had 150 tackles at Colorado State last year, but he's an undersized guy, so we'll see how that works. But he started all 3 years or both years he's been in college. He's only 6'1", 225 pounds. That'll be interesting. And like I said, the offensive line, it's relying on the transfers to make it work. I got him going 8-4. So, I mean, we'll see. It's never guaranteed. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
So they do have the hardest schedule in the Big 12. I think a big part of this, I mean, obviously they're going to A&M, to Texas Tech, to BYU. While I don't think they're going to lose it, they go to Colorado, which, depending on how the start of their season turns out, they could be a difficult place to play in, or it could be a rather easy place to play in. I think
I
it's
have
two.
Colorado. I had them playing Colorado at home.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, you said go to Colorado.
Wait, did I screw that up on the post? It is very likely that I did.
Yeah, on ESPN, I have them playing Colorado at home.
They are. Okay, never mind. Scratch that. I screwed that up. It's supposed to
What do
be
you have them playing
Colorado
Central Florida at?
home. So I botched
That's where
this
you
too.
messed it up. That's where you
And
messed
I
it up.
screwed up. Whoa. I screwed up. Oh my goodness, I really botched
Butchered
this.
all of it.
Yeah, all of it's wrong. I have
This is what
Baylor.
happens when you work out of your parents' basement.
And actually, I'm technically in the attic. But this is what happens when you do like 5 of these in a day. You lose focus. Yeah, I have them playing Baylor at Baylor, which is incorrect.
They
I
go
mean, it's
to
not terrible. I've them playing at home against Arizona, but you go over to Arizona, I have them playing ASU at home. So not great continuity there, but oh well, it
It's
is
all
what
right.
it is.
It's all right.
I'll,
Anyway,
I'll have I'll have
your
like
thoughts on the
60 of these
actual
done.
team rather than blowing a post.
Um, I think Cutter Boley is the likely starter at quarterback. I know you were saying don't leave out your guy Mikey Keene, but
It's not my guy, but yeah.
your Big Ten guy. We'll leave it at that. You pretty much covered everything else. I don't know how they're going to gel. They've got some difficult games. Um, I'll just leave it at A&M and then at Texas Tech. That Hawaii game could be a little bit of a trap game. Looking forward to Texas Tech the next week, sleepwalking through that week a little bit with the Rainbow Warriors, who they weren't terrible last year. I think they finished 8-4, 7-5.
Something like that.
It's one of the odd numbers, so it would have been 8-5. Won the Hawaii Bowl, but it'll be interesting to see kind of where the Big 12 plays out, because I mean, as you talked about, it's hard to predict some of these games just with how I think as top half or the SEC, it's kind of clear top and bottom. Big Ten kind of clear top and bottom, but with the Big 12, I think there's a lot of muddiness and kind of fluctuation. I mean, there's a very clear top 1 or 2, but there's no kind of defined like, okay, this is the top half, this is the bottom half for next season. So
I just think it's very muddy in the middle in the Big 12. Very muddy.
yeah,
I think you have some very obvious projecting based off of rosters. You have very obvious top teams. You have very obvious bottom teams. So in the middle, it gets muggy. Like outside of like the top 4 and the bottom 4, it's like who knows? Or even then, the Big 12, maybe the bottom two. Because I think you can assume Iowa State's going to be bad this year. And you can.
Yeah,
We'll,
I think Iowa State's going to be abysmal. And we'll get into that
we'll
Friday.
get to Colorado and why I think they're going to be the worst team in the Big 12. But I think you can assume Colorado's going to be pretty bad. And then you have the top four that you think are going to be pretty good in Brigham Young, Houston, Texas Tech, and Utah. And even then, I'm a lot higher on Houston than a lot of other people. Everyone else, I think it can go anywhere from 4-8 to 8-4, 9-3.
All right. If you have nothing else, it's on to Mormontown. BYU.
Okay. I had
Are
Baylor
they,
next. But go ahead.
well, I don't know. I just went off the spreadsheet. BYU, the line for them, 8.5. Both of us had them going over. You had them at 11-1. I had them at 10-2. 8-1 in conference for me, 9-0 in conference for you. Last season they're 12-2. Missed out on the CFP by a single game. Lost their two losses came to Texas Tech, once in the regular season, once in the conference championship. 64% returning production. That's very, very high nationally. Nationally ranked 39th transfer portal class, 6th in the Big 12, 18th recruit class, 2nd in the Big 12. And then obviously, I think you have them making the CFP, so I'm not going to ask that question. But they've won 23 games in the last two seasons and failed to make the CFP. So that was just a fun fact I found. But can Bear Bachmeyer, coming into his second season, and you talk about sophomore slump, that's something that we've thrown around a lot. How will he be able to take a step forward? I mean, he threw for over 3,000 yards last season, almost 65% completion percentage. Do you think you take another step forward and kind of lead BYU to the promised land?
Yes, but I have a question for you first.
Yes.
And I don't want to sound ignorant. I'm just curious in your thought. If Brigham Young had an SEC logo on their jersey, would they have made the CFP?
I don't think so. Hold on, let me look at their schedule from last season.
With 2 losses to the conference champ. Bad
But
losses.
they're
Mind you,
ish.
Bama was 10-3 with a 31-17 loss to Florida State. I know that was week 1, but they also got stomped by Georgia in the SEC championship. I know Bama had better wins, but
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is Bama had significantly better wins, because outside of that, I mean, Utah and Arizona are their only wins. Bama beat Georgia, beat Vanderbilt, who Vanderbilt wasn't much, but they beat Missouri, beat Tennessee. They
Missouri
lost
wasn't
to
much.
Oklahoma by 2, and then lost to Georgia in the conference championship. But I think that Georgia game, the conference championship, a lot of their starters were hurt.
Just an interesting thought exercise, not insinuating anything. Also, who do you have them losing to in the Big 12? Utah? It's the only other ranked team they play.
Yes, it's
Interesting.
it's at Utah, so I think Utah is going to be able to squeeze it out this year. I mean,
Interesting.
that game's always been kind of neck and neck the last couple years. But back to finishing your
Yeah,
um,
I'll go ahead.
thought question. I think that the ceiling we had seen from Bama last season, yes, they did lose to Florida State, and that was one of those games I think that they kind of sleptwalk into, and they just very much overlooked Florida State coming off a very rough past couple of seasons. But I think you look at that stretch of 5 games, where they were able to just kind of beat everyone. I mean, I think that was a lot better than going, because I mean, they beat that Oklahoma loss is also hurting. I think
It's making you think though, so that's all I'm saying.
yeah,
Like,
I mean I'm
I
saying
think you're splitting hairs. I was very adamant that Bama should have made the playoffs last year. I
if
think if you were going to throw a team out, it would have been Oklahoma for Brigham Young, personally. But
I would agree with that. I think that what you do if Bama had lost against okay, I'm gonna flip something around. If Bama lost at Missouri but beat Florida State, I think you could put BYU in over them. Maybe and they
Missouri, yeah, but Florida State's a worse loss.
that's why I say you flip them. I don't because I
Like,
think part
the
of
Florida
what
State
put
loss was
Bama in,
awful.
I think part of why they put Bama in was that 5 or 4 game stretch right there. I don't know if they win all 4 games that they still make it in. Um, I don't know because that SEC they did make. Yeah, I mean they made it to the SEC championship, so I don't think there was any way they were gonna. Even if you flip losses around, I think it'd still be. Actually, you can't throw in an SEC loss and still make it in the championship. Oh, I don't know if you
It's
can
an
throw around
interesting
these.
thought exercise. That's all I wanted to do. Like,
Okay, that was a
Brigham Young
much.
had a very solid argument, in my opinion, to make the playoff, and no one talked about it. There just wasn't enough room for him. I think there will be
Yeah,
more room this year because you're gonna have more SEC losses, but that's part of the whole like 8 versus 9 conference schedule. I think the Big 12 only played 8 last year, or they played 9. I don't remember.
no, they played 9.
Okay, it was the ACC then, but that's the
Well,
8 versus 9 game
the
conference
issue with
schedule.
the ACC is still, I think there's 6 of them that are still only playing an 8 game schedule because they have Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Um,
but even then, most of those teams are probably a guaranteed loss, with the exception of Miami and Southern Methodist.
all right.
But anyway, I'll go into Brigham Young. Yes, I think Bear Bachmeyer will take that step. He started as a true freshman last year, threw for 3,000 yards, about a 65% completion percentage. Only had 15 to 7 TD to interception ratio, but he also had 11 rushing touchdowns, so 500 rushing yards. And then you have LJ Martin returning, which was a huge return for them. LJ Martin had 1,300 yards rushing with 12 touchdowns, averaged 5.5 a carry. So I think the wide receiver room will be thin with their top 3 targets going to NFL or
Run out of
transferring,
eligibility.
running out of eligibility.
Because I think,
You don't.
what's his name? Parker Kingston is out of, I think he's done. I
He's
think he's
got
out of
other problems
eligibility.
going on. No, he has other problems going on.
Oh.
Brigham Young kicked him out of the program because of
Oh, that was the
that was
sexual
the
assault stuff.
allegations. Yeah, it was those allegations. But relying on guys with not a lot of experience. Uh, Walker Lyons looks to be the most experienced power forward player, and he's coming from USC at 223 yards. Everyone else, there's not a lot of experience there, so you need random guys from Brigham Young to step up. This offensive line, very experienced. You have 4 seniors, and then Packy Finau, who is coming from Washington. I want to say he started last year. But he's a sophomore coming in, likely slotting in that left tackle spot. So, little bit of a worry about their wide receiver room, but I think everything else will have some juice, and I think it's going to be a very run-based team once again. You look at the defense, Cade Ululave, He's a senior transferring in from Cal. He had 100 total tackles, 12 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks last year with 6 PBUs. He is going to be a stud on a already very experienced defense that didn't take in a lot of transfers. Pass rush was a slight struggle, but have some experience to fall back on. Their projected starting ends are Bodie Schoonover, who had 3 sacks last year, and Nusi Pomupeo. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. But he didn't get a lot of time last year, but you also have 2 senior tackles as well. And the backfield will be as far as this team goes. Bachmeier looked really shaky against experienced teams. And so you got to see how he develops. They play home against Arizona week 2. Then they go to Texas Christian. They have Notre Dame at home, which is going to be an absolutely insane game. Probably going to be, that might be the game day game. And then they go to Utah. So a very interesting schedule, an experienced offensive line, and a relatively experienced defense as well. I think this team can go far. That's why I have them going 11-1 and winning the conference final. But what say you, Briggs?
I think both of us had them losing the game to Notre Dame.
Yes.
I think you just about covered it. I mean, you put a blanket over that entire topic. I'm trying to find something to say. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where the receiving room steps up and who kind of steps into that role. You talked about Walker Lyons. I think he's going to have to play a big part. I think the ground game is where they're going to kind of start early, especially if you look at the Utah Tech game and Arizona game. I think they're going to try and pound the ball first, kind of get those newer receivers, more inexperienced receivers comfortable, and kind of ease them into Colorado State, TCU, and then kind of get them ready for Notre Dame. If there's any reason, I think that I think the reason why they lose to Notre Dame is because of the inexperience at wide receiver going up against, I think, some pretty experienced cornerbacks that they have in South Bend.
Probably the best secondary in the country.
Yeah.
So that'll be a will of how good, like, that is going to be a measure game. Even if Brigham Young loses that game, that's going to be a measure of game of, like, can our offensive and defensive line compete with the big boys? Because if you can win the line of scrimmage, and you can pound the ball, there will be receivers. It will happen because the safeties are going to walk up, the corners are going to walk up, and you will allow some of these young, inexperienced receivers who will have 5, 6 games under their belt by that point, a chance to have that breakout game, especially where you already play 3 conference games before you go play Notre Dame.
Anything else?
I think I put a blanket on it.
All right. Going down to Baylor, Texas with the Baylor Bears. Their line is 6.5. I think you had them going under. I have them going over. You had them at 5-7, 3-6 in conference. I had them at 7-5, 5-4 in conference. They went 5-7, 3-6 last year. Returning 53% of their offense or total production. 36th ranked national transfer portal class, 5th in the Big 12, and then 54th ranked national recruiting class, 10th in the Big 12. So my big question for you is, how hot is the seat for Aranda, their head coach? He's 36-37 in 6 seasons. He's got 2 winning seasons, including a 2021 Big 12 championship, which they went 12-2. And then they were 8-5 in 2024. But outside of that, they've had some pretty down years. I think they were 3-9 once or twice in there. But is this seat hot for them, especially for a team that won the Big 12? Not even, I guess it'd be 5 years ago now.
Yes. But I think if Baylor goes 5-7, like I'm projecting them to, Dave Aranda will be fired. Absolutely, because of the thought of you have DJ Lagway, who a lot of people predicted he was the number one quarterback in the SEC. That's all I'm gonna say on that. And predicted Florida to maybe be a sneaky bid to go in the playoffs, and it fell apart. And Lagway was not great. Lagway loves to turn the ball over, so he has 23 interceptions in his career and 28 touchdowns. So not a great TD to interception ratio. So it was 63% completion last year. So not great. Their receiving core starting all over again. Dawson Pendergrass coming back. He should be good. He had 600 yards last year. Lewis Brown IV is returning, and Draylon Miller and Gavin Freeman are going to be the guys at receiver. As I said, DJ Lagway's got to limit the interceptions. The offensive line brought in a lot of transfers and is somewhat young. They brought in 3, 5, 6 transfers total on the offensive line. 3 of them are projected to start. So the offensive line is questionable at best. All new defensive line for Baylor. They need to try to stop the run. They're 0-7 when they were 0-7 last year when giving up 165 yards plus rushing. And they need some playmakers, man. They need someone to make a play on defense. They lost Keaton Thomas, Cameron Morgan, Matthew Fobbs-White. They lost a bunch of guys. And who on this defense who is somewhat experienced is going to step up? They brought in some depth on the transfer portal as well. But that defensive front is starting all over again. And you don't have a tune-up game. You go and play Auburn, who's brought in a pretty good class, and they're going to be juiced up to go out there for Alex Golish. So you don't have a tune-up game. You go straight into the season where you can start 0-1 or 1-0, and that can lead downstream to the rest of your season. Where if you beat Auburn, you're likely at 4-0 going to Arizona State. I think that Auburn game is going to be really big for deciding how Baylor's season goes this year. Where if you can get that 4-0 start, because I'm going to project you to beat Colorado, you can pretty easily get bowl eligible, but you have a absolute slugfest to end the season with 3 of the top 4 teams in the Big 12 at the end of the season. So, and Baylor could very much overperform and go be 9-0 going into that Brigham Young game, where that becomes a monster game. They would have to severely perform to beat Arizona State, Texas Christian, Kansas, UCF, 2 of which 3 of those 4 they play away from home.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this. You look at the schedule and you look at the teams on it, it's like, it's not that bad until they play Kansas on October 24th, and then they go to UCF on October 30th. So you only get 6 days of rest before you go play UCF.
So I've got a possible thing here. Sawyer Robertson. He was Baylor's quarterback for the last couple of seasons. Could Lagway be a possible downgrade at quarterback there? He threw for, and these stats are over the last 2 seasons, he threw for 6,800 yards, 59 touchdowns in the last 2 years. And hold on, let me pull up his interceptions. 20 interceptions to 59 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. So if Lagway can't get his turnover numbers down, it could be the reason Lagway could either be the reason that they go 9-0 into that BYU game, or the reason that they are 5-4, 4-5 going into that game. I don't think that there's a situation in which either one of those is out of the question. I think both of those are possibilities, but it entirely depends on what his turnover numbers are like. And then can the defense become somewhat reliable? You mentioned how they lost a lot, and it's an entirely new defensive line, but they gave up almost 390 yards per game of total offense last season, and they gave up over 32 points per game. So I think if they're going to want to go 9-0 into that BYU game, those numbers need to take a massive drop off.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been high on DJ Lagway. I'm not high on him this year. He's got that potential where you see it. He's another one of those college quarterbacks where you see him do crazy things. You're like, oh, this guy's got it. And then you realize he throws an interception on the next play, and you're like, oh, this guy may not have it. So, it's just the lack of star power, man. I mean, especially on defense where you don't really know. You brought in some older guys, but trying to look at their stats right now, not a lot of these guys got experience, or a whole lot of it, or they're putting up good stats. I mean, Garrett Ponder put up some good season with 11 tackles for loss and 3.5 sacks. But I just roster wise, I don't know how that plays well, but it's so unknown because a lot of this defense got a lot of transfers. How this offensive line do with 6 total transfers? You need Jalon Miller and Gavin Freeman to make some plays. Gavin Freeman had 500 yards last year. Oklahoma State. So maybe we'll see. It's another one of those teams where you can see it going either way. Where you go 9-0 and you're playing Utah, you're a top 15 team in the country. You're going to Brigham Young at 9-0, and then you could fall off a cliff and
lose 3 straight.
9-3, which you probably will, because I just don't think they have the talent profile to match up to those 3 teams. But yeah, I mean, like I said, that Auburn game plays a huge role in deciding how Baylor's season goes.
All right, you ready to move on? All right, next up, Cincinnati. Misspoke. I think I said Colorado right before a little break there. Books got them at 5.5. Both of us are going under at 4-8. They've got the 6th hardest schedule in the Big 12. Last season they were 7-6, 5-4. I believe they lost to Navy in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Returning 50%, 57% of total production, 41th nationally ranked transport class, 7th in the Big 12, 58th nationally ranked recruit class, 12th in the Big 12. That's got to be a lucky number or something. Can Scott Satterfield, this is my big question for you, continue to make improvements? He's improved every year, adding 2 wins. And so far, both of us are saying no. But in 2023, he went 3-9. 24, he went 5-7. In 2025, he went 7-6. So while we both don't think so, do you think he can continue to kind of move that program in the right direction, especially after Luke Fickell, or I think that's what his name was, right? Luke Fickell left for Wisconsin a couple years ago.
It depends. Like, if they would have had Sorsby this year without getting into the gambling stuff, they would have had Sorsby this year. Absolutely. JC French, he's an experienced guy. He's got 2 years starting. It's all dependent on him. 20-8 touchdown to interception ratio. He also has that running element where he's got 315 rush yards and 6 touchdowns last season. It was at Georgia Southern. He could. It's just, it depends. It depends on JC French. They also had Liam O'Brien transfer in. I didn't grab his stats. He's from Penn. He's also a senior. So they're going to have a couple of options at running back as well. They will have Zion Johnson, who's a good-looking prospect. He only had 100 yards last year, though. And Zylan Perry, who is transferring in from Louisiana. And he's got 1,300 yards in his career over the past 2 seasons. So, and Jabran Payne, who transfers in from Notre Dame. He didn't get a lot of playing time last year, but they're going to have options. All this to say, they're going to have options at running back. They've got a bunch of transfers in receiver. JV Gibson's projected to start. He didn't play a lot last year. Malachi Henry, he's from Central Arkansas. He's also projected to start. And Isaiah Johnson returning, where he had 200 yards last year. Let's see if there's anyone else. So stats that is projected to start. Doesn't look like it, but a lot of transfers, especially from the D2 and the FCS level, they're going to have options to work through at receiver. One of the big things I like, all their offensive linemen are not transferred in, so a little bit more time to mesh. They're all at least upperclassmen, juniors, and seniors, but not a lot of newness on the offensive line. I don't see a transfer for this offensive line, courtesy of our lads. Defense got to get off the field. Last in first downs allowed last year in the Big 12, I want to say. I didn't mark this properly. But Nate Woody's coming in. And I'm trying to remember where he's coming from. Yeah, I can't find it. But Nate Woody's coming in. He was a defensive coordinator at some G6 school last year. Got a slew of transfers on the defense. A lot of that secondary is projected to be transfers, including MJ Cannon, who's coming from Bowling Green. Jasper Beeler, who's coming from NIU. He had 77 tackles last season, projected at the free safety position. And another NIU. Oh, Nate Woody was NIU. Duh. And Jacob Finley, who had 57 tackles last year. All those guys are projected to start. And it's got to mesh. There's prospects coming in that have some upside. Like I said, it's a lot of transfers coming in from the FCS and the D2 ranks. Philip Makirokowski, he had 87 tackles with 6.5 tackles for loss last season. He's coming in from NIU as well. So, and they got some depth out of the portal. It's got to mesh all under Nate Woody. They're going to try to fix that pressure and grab some more takeaways with an attacking style of defense.
Do you think they can avoid another late season meltdown? Last season they started 7-1, great off the rip, and finished 7-5. And the second half of their schedule is brutal. You go,
I can tell you, Boston College is not a walk in the park. Kansas State, not a walk in the park. At Arizona, not a walk in the park. At West Virginia, not a walk in the park. And by the way, you play 3 of the top 4 teams in the Big 12 the next 3 weeks. And Texas Tech, Utah, and Houston. Houston, you play away. And then you go to Iowa State, home against Colorado this next 2 weeks. Should be able to pick up 2 wins there, hopefully. And then you go to Brigham Young for the final game of the season. No. You have 4 guaranteed losses after October 17th. almost guaranteed. Like, because they can't upset one of these teams, especially JC French comes out on fire. But and at best, you're probably only upsetting one of those teams because I don't think the talent profile matches up. That's what requires a lot of these D2 and FCS prospects to make a huge jump, especially with the competition you're going to be facing, especially when you're playing Texas Tech, Utah, Houston, and Brigham Young. And to even pull out one of those teams and keep it close, that's just tough for me.
Yeah, it's rough. Don't really know if you can blame the scheduling on the coach there either. It's just luck of the draw and did not get lucky.
I think Satterfield will get a chance to rectify it.
Yes,
I,
I don't think he may not get a chance to rectify it if they go 2-10. I will say that. While it is unlikely, I don't like if you lose.
If you lose to Boston College at home, I mean,
and then your only 2 wins are West Carolina and Miami of Ohio, and lose out from there, he may not make it to the end of the season, especially depending on how they lose those 3 games to Texas Tech, Utah, and Houston. He may not get to the end of the season.
Well, and then if you go drop Iowa State, that's when you may get fired.
At Iowa State, too.
Yeah, that's the game that's going to get you fired because I think Iowa State's going to be way out of the Big 12 championship picture by that point. And we get to them. Yeah, they're our last team.
Way out of the Big 12. I'd never even had them in the Big 12 picture.
Well, technically every team's in the Big 12 picture. All 16 teams are right now.
Yes. The 0.0000001% chance to win the Big 12.
Right, Colorado's in the Big 12 picture right now. I don't think that's last and past. Or did they play week 1? Yeah, I don't think that's last and past week 1.
All right, you ready to move on to Colorado?
Yeah.
All right. But they 4.5 projected win total. You had them under. I had them over. Last season they finished 3-9, 1-8 in conference. They're returning 21% of their total production, with only 3 players in the entire defensive side of the ball coming back. Only 3 players. The entire starting defense, brand new.
I was about to say, have you looked at their roster? And you have them going 5-7 against that schedule?
I have them going 7-5. Even
Where
better.
Where is that? You haven't beaten Northwestern?
Yes.
You're not a chance. They're not beating Northwestern at Evanston. Not a chance.
I got them beating Northwestern. I think I have them beating Baylor too.
Baylor's not crazy. Okay, I'll give you that one.
I've got them. Okay, so I have them. I have them beating Baylor, beating Cincinnati, beating Oklahoma State, and beating UCF.
Beating Oklahoma State in Stillwater? After you come off of Texas Tech and Utah at home?
Yes.
Not a chance.
Let's see. Oklahoma State is returning 2 starters entirely. 3.
Okay, but at least half that Oklahoma State team played together last year. Like, all of it's just... And we'll get to Oklahoma State, but all of that Oklahoma State team is... Or not all of it, but especially that offense, all played together last year.
I still think that the raw talent in Colorado might still be better than that. And I'll get to why. But I already know your answer to this, but I think this may be kind of Deion's last season. I mean, both of his boys are, I guess all 3 of his boys now are gone. And I think the main reason he went to Colorado was to kind of coach them and guide them to the league. Now that that's done, he can kind of go sit back, do whatever he wants in retirement. But he went 9-4 in 2024 with his last season with Shador and Travis Hunter. 3-9 last season. I see them improving. I think Julian Lewis will take a step forward after being redshirted last year. There is some turnover. They have 2 returning offensive linemen. A
All their
lot of
backups are
transfers, though.
transfers.
Yeah, a lot of their backups are transfers. And so he only played in 4 games last season. So Julian Lewis, we don't know much. And given last season was kind of a wash for everyone. But I think that they do have a decent amount of talent. I think they will be able to scratch it out of someone. I do think they're going to lose to Houston, to Texas Tech, to Utah. I think I had them losing to Kansas State. Like, I think they're going to lose a lot of the games they're supposed to lose, but I think they'll be able to win. Like, I think Northwestern, they're going to get Northwestern. I'm not high on Northwestern. Coming in, I know that's going to be completely opposite what you have, but I think Northwestern is going to be kind of middle of the pack in the Big Ten and kind of not meet expectations. I know a lot of people are high on them this year. Brand new stadium, all these expectations. No, you're not going to live up to it.
They're going to get killed in the trenches by Northwestern. I hope you know that. But anyway, you're relying on Colorado to change an offense that was 114th in the nation total offense, 110th in rushing, and only scored 20.9 points per game last season. Julian Lewis and Isaac Wilson. Julian Lewis probably going to be the starter. If I had to guess, Isaac Wilson's got a little bit of experience. But Colorado's going to have the skill players. They got some experience in DeAndre Moore Jr., Joseph Williams, and Danny Scudero. He's going to be a weapon in the slot. I would not be surprised if Danny Scudero has a huge season this year playing in that Colorado offense. But you go look at their running backs, and Micah Welch had 300 yards last year, average 4 carry, okay. He's not projected to start. Richard Young is, and he didn't play at all last year. Or he didn't play a lot last year. Yeah, he had 64 yards at Bama last year.
Yeah.
And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have 8 offensive line transfers. Only 3 of them are projected to start. One of them is a redshirt freshman who from Ohio State, but he's 6'3", 295. They got a little bit of beef, but no one wants to. I hate to do this, but I don't know a lot of guys that are going to Colorado to go play in the trenches. There's a reason Jordan Seaton got out of there. No one's going to Colorado to go play in the trenches. You're going to go play at Colorado for your 15 minutes of fame. Or if you're Danny Scudero, where you have an opportunity to go be in a high-flying offense. And you're relying on prospects who have no experience on the offensive line. I just don't see it. You're relying on running backs to really step up. I think the problem's still going to be the problem, especially with that schedule. They're probably going to get pushed around at Georgia Tech. They're probably going to get pushed around at Northwestern. Baylor will see. Home against Texas Tech, they're going to get pushed around. Home against Utah, they're going to get pushed around. We'll see with Oklahoma State. Questionable offensive line. Kansas State produces offensive linemen. They develop them. Arizona State, we'll see. Home against Houston, they're going to get pushed around. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6 games that I am almost willing to guarantee they're going to get pushed around in on the offensive line at the very least. And you're relying on all transfers to mesh in a defense that was not great last year. Granted, it wasn't all on the defense. Chris Marv is the former Virginia Tech defensive coordinator. They weren't bad, but they're 121st in the nation, dead last in the Big 12 in total defense, and it's just you're relying on a lot. Liana Lafau, he's a great prospect from Texas. He had 69 total tackles. He's going to be a linebacker. Gideon Lampron, he had 119 total tackles at Bowling Green. And I'm trying to see. But a lot of these other transfers, like Leona Lafau is the only one that has power forward production coming out of the transfer portal. So you're relying on a lot of G6 guys to step up. We're going to talk about this with Oklahoma State. You're relying on this entire defense of G6 transfers to step up. And I don't think it works as well when they're all transferring in from different places. Like, unlike Indiana with JMU, we'll see with UCLA this year. I'm trying to think of another example where it might work. Florida with Tulane transfers. We'll see with that one.
I don't think Tulane. I don't think there's as many Tulane guys going over to Florida though, as what you've seen
I don't
with.
know. I gotta look at the roster. I've not looked at the roster yet, so I don't know. But like these G6 coaches that are like the ones that actually work so far has been the G6 coach going to the Power 4 school. But the only ones that have really worked, cobbling together 11 new starters of G6 guys that have never played together. That's a dangerous game to play. It's a really dangerous game. So I don't like it for Colorado. I think it's going to be a brutal season for the Buffs. I think the problems that they had last year are still going to be the problems. And they're not going to get pushed on either of the defensive lines or either of the trenches, either side of the trenches. And I think the problem's still going to be the problem. Whether Julian Lewis is the best quarterback to play college football or not, I don't see it. And you're relying on young guys that don't have a lot of run to perform really well at running back. I just don't trust it. I have to see it to believe it.
There are 2 transfers coming over from Tulane to Florida.
I don't care about that. We'll talk about that.
According to 24/7. I got curious, so I looked it up. But
I don't
that's all
care about that. We're talking about Colorado. The Buffs, 125th in the nation in sacks allowed, giving up over 3 in game. 126th in 2024, 132nd in 2023. I don't trust it. The problem has always been the offensive line specifically. And I think it's questionable on the defensive line. I think their linebackers are going to be really good. I think it's going to be the only shining part on this defense. Where the rest of your defense, you're relying on prospects to go out and improve.
So you talk about, I'm going to point out to the Northwestern side, their depth chart pulled up. Guess how many sacks their starting defensive line has?
Probably not a lot.
Last season, I believe the number is 4.5. If I'm doing my math correctly.
That doesn't matter when Colorado gets pushed around by everyone. I mean, Colorado was getting pushed around by G6 teams last year.
But
When you're
I'm
giving up
saying,
6 sacks a game, or I mean, 3.5 sacks a game. I'm sorry, I don't know where 6 came from. When you're giving up 3.5 sacks a game every year for what 3-4 years in a row, I don't believe you throwing the transfer portal out the problem is going to solve it. That's what Florida State's done the last couple of years since they got left out of the playoffs in 23. It's what a lot of these teams that are questionable have done is they throw transfers at the problem and it doesn't work.
but it has worked for other schools.
There are going to be a lot more Florida State than Indiana. I'm telling you. Indiana had Sig had an actual plan when he came in, and it really worked out for him. You're not going to have the Indianas come out. And throwing the transfer portal out the problem without the hype machine of Deion Sanders, where no one believes it anymore, where you got a female screaming at a bunch of grown men in the locker room trying to hype you up for a scrimmage. Like, it doesn't work. Like, they're trying all these gimmicks. It's not going to work. I'm sorry to break it to you.
We'll see. I'm not saying they're gonna fucking win the whole thing, but I do think they can go. I think they can go 7-5. I think that they're gonna beat Northwestern.
I don't think I'll put. What do we want to bet for this? Because I'm willing to bet they're not beating Northwestern. If it was at Colorado, maybe I would have a different opinion. And this is without me looking at Northwestern's roster. And 2, I think you got to bring in the coach factor. Where it's Pat Fitzgerald there now, right? That's his name. I know who I'm thinking
Yes.
of.
I think it's Pat Fitzgerald.
I trust the head coach. I believe in the head coaching thing.
I don't know where you're seeing potential from Northwestern.
I don't
Aiden
see it on a
Childs.
Big Ten schedule, but against the worst team in the Big 12, I'll see it. Like, I don't think that's crazy. And I threw Colorado a layup by giving them a win in the Big 12. I don't think they're capable of beating any of these teams. I think they're going to go 1-11. I just threw them a layup because I didn't want any team to go winless in conference play. I threw them a layup. I don't think they're going to beat a single team except Weber State.
You want to put some thank yous on the line?
We're not posting that on social media. Hell no. Absolutely not.
See, you're not as confident.
I'm legally obligated to not post that on social.
Why not? I don't see what's wrong with that.
I'm not doing that on social media. I'm not ending up on Not and Regs, son. That is not happening. That is not gonna happen.
All right. On to Houston.
Yeah.
All right. Let me actually pull my stuff up that I got discombobulated looking at. All right. Houston, their line. I believe that says over and a half. I can't read my own handwriting here. 11th hardest strength schedule, so not terrible. Last season they went 10-3, 6-3 in conference, returning 65% of total production. 50th national ranked group, transport class, 12th in the Big 12.
Wait, you said what about Houston's transfer class?
50th nationally ranked. I think that was according
I don't think
to
that's right.
according to 24/7. They are 50. I'm staring at it right now. 19 commits.
All right, go on with what you're about to say.
And of course, I've used 24/7 for all of my things, but that is where 24/7 has them on their ranking. And then 32nd nationally ranked recruiting class, 5th in the Big 12. Houston proved 10 wins wasn't a fluke. They went 4-8 2 seasons ago in 2024, 10-3 last season. And then can Connor Weigman improve on last season? I think you have in doing so. He threw for 65% completion, over 2,200 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 picks, 18 sacks, and 147.1 rating. Did you find it?
Almost there. I just swear we had their championship class higher.
No, it's just a bunch of 3 stars.
Hold on, keep talking. I had to find them. Okay, so
So
on three has them at 6. So that's why.
nationally,
Yeah. Their
that
Power
makes
4 transfer portal index. So I guess that includes what left versus what came in.
yeah, I think this is just what came in.
Okay, so that's why. Because on 3 has them at 6 in their index. Okay, that makes sense. It says
They didn't.
Virginia Tech at 7, as Indiana at 1, Louisville at 2, A&M at 3, Tech at 4, Texas Tech, LSU 5, Houston 6, Virginia Tech 7, Notre Dame 8, Arkansas 9, Texas 10. Because
Yeah,
it has Ohio State is way lower on 3 versus, like on 3 it has Ohio State at 38. I think on 24/7 it's at Ohio State at 7. Okay, that's what tripped me up. Okay, continue.
But on their depth chart, there is a lot of turnover on offense. Mekhi Hughes coming in at running back. I don't think he played a
He's
lot
going to be a
last year.
stud.
He didn't play a
He's
lot.
going to be a stud.
Didn't play a lot last year. He ran for over 1,400 yards in 24 with 15 touchdowns in 23. He was just shy of 1,400 yards with 7 touchdowns. So he should be able to help maintain or boost that 178 yards per game that Houston was averaging on the ground last season. But yeah, they have, what is that, 3 new offensive linemen coming in from the portal. I don't know if you're seeing this, but their offensive depth chart also looks rather thin.
Yeah, I don't think that's completely, I don't think it's completely updated. Last time this was updated was May 7th. So, may have not completely filled in yet, realistically, because they carry 85 players on a roster. There's not 85 players on the depth chart.
There's maybe
You know what I mean?
50.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. But it should give you a good idea of who the starters are going to be at the very least.
Yeah. And so I think the big question is going to be that offensive line. Shadre, I hope I pronounced that right. Shadre Hurst, transferring over from Tulane. You have Anthony Boswell. He's coming over from Toledo, I believe. Purdue, possibly.
He's coming from Toledo.
Toledo. And then you have Drew Terrell at the right tackle. He's coming in from Miami of Ohio, which big 300-pounder there. So it'll be interesting to see how they can gel, especially if they can kind of hold up and at least give Mekhi Hughes a chance to get out of the backfield. I didn't look up their sack numbers. Weigman got sacked 18 times last year. So not bad by any means. Yeah. Not that's a lot lower than a lot of the other quarterbacks we talked about tonight so far. But back to my question, can Connor Weigman improve on a solid season from last season?
I mean, yeah, and he can't do much better than he played last year. He had 2,700 pass yards, 700 rush yards, 36 total touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Connor Weigman had a really good season. They got some help out in the backfield with Mekhi Hughes. Rashawn Sanford II, he had, if it'll load, He had 400 yards in 2024. I don't know. I think he might have been hurt last year. I'm not sure. This receiving core is absolutely loaded. Absolutely loaded with experience. You have Trent Walker, who's coming in from Oregon State. He's got 1,700 yards in his career. Only 4 touchdowns, but Oregon State hasn't been great the last couple years. And then Amari Thomas is returning, and he had 900, almost 1,000 yards with 12 touchdowns last year. And then Kobe Young is projected to be a really good deep threat. He didn't get a lot of run last year. He's going to replace Tanner Koizal. So, and Koizal is tight end. Disregard. I read that wrong. But Patrick Overmeyer, he had 344 yards at UTSA. Yeah, UTSA last year. Their pass catching is going to be really loaded this year. And the biggest question on this offense to me is the offensive line, in which you're going to have 4 seniors on that, which I like. They might move someone else other than Anthony Boswell to center position group. Like, who wins those battles is TBD. I don't think the official depth charts will be released until almost week 1. So, offensive line will be interesting. They're projected to start 3 transfers right now, but I like the oldness to it with a very loaded skill position group on offense. Willie Fritz, I feel like every time I see Willie Fritz, he always has a good defense. I think Houston had a relatively decent defense since they joined the Big 12. And 6 starters are back on this Houston defense, which is really big. And the other 5 spots are likely to be filled in by transfers, and it's not too much at either of the 3 levels. You have 2 transfers coming in on the defensive line that are projected to start. You have 1 linebacker and 2 guys in the secondary. The corners, not a lot of depth, but the starters will have experience. Javion White, he had 50 tackles. He's coming in from Tulane. Jalen Mayo, he started at Stephen F. Austin last year. Jordan Allen, 48 tackles last year. Kentrell Webb, he'll start, and Will James. So, secondary's thin, but all those guys have starter experience. Their biggest problem last year was a lack of established pass rush. Porter Ashton, he had 20 tackles last year, didn't have a lot of sacks. And Ejiro Egodobare, I definitely butchered that. He's a senior coming in from Yale. He's projected to start at nose, but these prospects do need to fill the shoes and find a way to get to the pass rush, because that was the biggest question. It's probably their biggest question going into the season, and how well can the rest of these 5 transfers coming in gel with the 6 experienced starters from Houston last year.
So it'll be interesting. Not the hardest schedule in the world. I mean, really only at Texas Tech and at Utah.
That at Texas Tech game on a Friday night in Texas, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox, that is going to be a absolutely monster game, and that is a very big measuring stick, and I think Houston will. If they don't win it, I have them winning it, but if they don't win it, I think they can keep it really close.
I think that's going to be a great game. And you talk about the ratings for that game should be through the roof. You ready to move on to the decrepit Cyclones?
Unfortunately.
We're going to wrap it out here for the night with Iowa State. They're returning exactly 0 starters from last season. Every single starter is uh, off and out. They are only current starters that are returning from the team last year. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on offensive defense. Don't really count the kickers. They kind of fluidly move around. So folks have them down at 4.5. Last season they went 8-4, 5-4 in conference. A lot of that moved on to Penn State. Talk about returning production. That number is 0 as no starters are coming back. Transfer portal class 67th nationally, 16th. That's good for dead last in the Big 12. And then recruit class 56th nationally and 11th in the Big 12. I don't think there's really much to cover here. I think this is going to be, I don't want to say it's going to be a wash of a season. The new coaching staff kind of got screwed, kind of coming in right towards the end of the available transfer portal window. Wasn't really a chance to go out and get anyone big. And so they kind of have bandaged together, like they band-aids and glued this roster together. So I think the Iowa State Cyclones are going to finish dead last. I think they have the most real possibility of going 0-12, but was it 0-9 in conference? Just because a lot of these guys are transfers, not much talent, not much production at all returning. So very inexperienced. So we'll go ahead and get to your analysis.
I mean, Jalen Rayner is not a bad get for quarterback. A guy that was at Arkansas State the last 3 years. He has over 8,500 yards in his career. Does have 21 interceptions in the last 2 years. If you're Iowa State, you can live with that as long as you can get some production. And if I'm Jimmy Rogers, 4-8 to success this year. That's what I have them going. I think they can beat one of I think they're going to beat Southeast Missouri State and they're going to beat Bowling Green. And then I think they can beat 2 of West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Cincy, UCF, and K-State. I think they can beat 2 of those teams. I think they'll be able to pull it out. Most likely of those 2 is probably going to be Cincinnati and UCF. We'll see how Oklahoma State is this year. But I think you can win 2 of those games. O-line will be all transfers. It's really how well will his team gel. There's a lot of overhaul in this roster. It's Isaac Terrell will lead a okay defensive line rotation. He's coming in from Washington State, who had 7 sacks last season. And Caden Crawford's coming in from South Dakota. He had 5 sacks last year. So there might be a little bit of a pass rush there. Not a lot of Power 4 experience across the board. The schedule's not ideal, where they play 3 ranked teams right now. Could play a couple more depending on how the rest of the league shapes up. And you remember how long it took Matt Campbell to turn Iowa State into a really solid program. And Jimmy Rogers is going to need a multi-year effort to get this out. And I think Iowa State fans can be okay with their first losing season since 2022. I think they'll be okay with that. And it kind of fell off the rails for Iowa State last year. They got really distracted with all the Matt Campbell to Penn State talks. I think it was a really distracting thing for the team. lo and behold, all that team transfers out. I hope it for Jimmy Rogers. They got thrown into a really bad situation. And I hope it's not a brutal year for them. I hope it's not what I'm calling Colorado to be this year. You know? So that's all I got for Iowa State.
I don't have much. We can go ahead and wrap it out here. Getting close to an hour and a half, hour 35 recording time. So if you want to go ahead and
poll, man.
Yeah.
It was the AP poll segment.
Just like it was the WNBA the other night.
Yeah, let's not start on that. Did you see the Caitlin Clark meme?
That is hilarious. Did you before I'm going to limit this to like a 2-minute conversation, but Angel Reese was 5 of 16 shooting, only had 2 shots outside of the paint. Neither one of those went in. And I think she had 16 points, but I mean, that's ridiculous. As a big, being 5 of 16 shooting is atrocious. I mean, you should be up near like 60, I think 60 to 70%, at least on shots in the paint, not 5 of 14.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's saying, like, taking that as like a personal slight against Angel Reese. I don't think that is. I think that was like, oh, we dodged a bullet. She probably should have made those shots. And I don't even think she was looking at Angel. I think everyone's trying to make a big hoopla out of it for whatever reason. But anyway, we thank you so much if you stayed this long for staying this long. We really appreciate it. We will be back at some point this week with the rest of our Big 12 predictions. We'll probably do an AP poll, our poll episode, maybe some point soon. It depends. A lot's coming down the pipe. We're going to do NFL predictions, SEC, Big Ten predictions. We'll break down week 0. We'll preview week 0, break those games down. If anything notable happens, maybe touch on some NFL preseason. There's so much going on in the sports world. We still got baseball going on. We just had Scotty Scheffler win his 2nd tournament of the year. So much going on. And we both have full-time jobs, so it's hard to keep up with it all.
To which I believe Scotty has now moved into 2nd place all time on the PGA career earnings list, or winnings list, I believe is what they call it. So congrats to him on that.
We might just need to record a separate episode on all the things that have happened in the last 3 weeks, because we've just been focused on preview. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope y'all have a great rest of your week. We will see you on sometime this weekend. Really appreciate it. Have a great night. God bless.